Hi everyone, it's Sarah Jane from Coco Crochet, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make this super sweet can cozy. It's super quick to make and makes a brilliant gift or something for yourself. This is a free pattern that you can find on my blog and is also available as an ad-free PDF. I'll leave a link in the description box below. I'm going to be using Hirschner's Cottage Cotton for this project. This is 60% cotton and 40% acrylic. It is a number 4 medium weight yarn, also known as an Aran or worsted weight yarn. It comes in some super lovely colours. I'm going to be using these two today for this tutorial. I'm going to be using a 5mm crochet hook. This is one of my new favourite hooks from Ashley from Heart Hook Home, and it even has a ruler on the back. You will need a pair of scissors and a darning needle for sewing in your ends, and a stitch marker might come in handy as well. So as I say, I'll leave everything in the description box below so you can go and check that out. Go ahead and grab everything that you need and let's get started. I wanted to quickly talk about colourway options. So on this version I have used chiffon, which is this colour here, as the main colour. But in the demonstration I'm going to use blossom as the main colour, and you'll see the difference that it makes. If I just bring over this bottle holder here, this is switched round in colourways. So the main colour is the green and the contrast colour is the chiffon, and it just gives you a really different visual effect. So have a think of which way round you want your colourway to go, but as I'm going to do it this way round using the blossom as the main colour. So we're going to begin with the main colour and we're going to make a magic ring. So we're going to lay the tail end of yarn over our hand like this, wrap it around our finger to create an X, and then we're going to go under that first loop and pull through that second loop. We're going to grab the yarn and pull it through to chain 1, and then you can remove your finger. So now that is the magic ring made. So in this first magic ring we're going to do round 1 and we're going to work 6 double crochets, which is US single crochets. So we'll go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, you'll have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both loops, and that is our first double crochet, US single crochet. And then we'll do 5 more. So into the magic ring, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through 2. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we now have our 6 double crochet US single crochets. And what we're going to do now is pull on this tail end to pull this ring closed. Now I'm not going to pull it all the way closed just yet. I'm going to actually join first of all. So locate your very first stitch. If it helps, you can count backwards: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to go into the top of that first stitch and yarn over, pull through for a slip stitch. There we go. Now I'm going to pull on that tail end and close in that beginning circle. So now for round 2 we're going to increase from 6 stitches to 12 stitches. I'm going to chain 1. This does not count as a stitch here or throughout the pattern, and we're going to go into that very first stitch and work 2 double crochets, US single crochets into that stitch. So we'll go into the first stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, that's 1, and then another, and then we're going to work 2 stitches into the next stitch, 1 and 2. So that's 4 stitches so far, and we're going to work 2 stitches in each stitch all the way around. So we have 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12. So we now have our 12 stitches. It may feel like you have a stitch left, but actually this is your slip stitch from the previous round, so we ignore that. And just to make sure that you have the right amount of stitches, you can count backwards: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So we'll go into that very first stitch, yarn over, pull through and pull through, and there we have our round 2. For round 3 we're going to increase by a further 6 stitches, so we're going to have 18 at the end of this round. We'll chain 1 and then we're going to do a pattern repeat. So we'll first of all start by doing 1 double crochet US single crochet into that first stitch, and then we'll do 2 stitches into the next stitch. So 1 and 2. So that's our pattern repeat. 1 into the next stitch and 2 into the next stitch. 1 and 2. So we're just doing those UK double crochets, US single crochets. Go ahead, pause the video, work that pattern repeat all the way around, 1 into the next stitch, 2 into the next stitch, until you have 18 stitches, and then meet me back once you're ready. So now you've worked your way all the way around, we're going to join with a slip stitch into that first stitch. And then we'll move on to round 4. So we're going to chain 1 and we're going to do 1 stitch into the next 2 stitches. So UK double, US single. So we have 1 and then into the next stitch 2. And then we'll work 2 stitches into the next stitch. 1 and 2. And that's the pattern repeat all the way around. So 1 into the next 2 stitches. So 1 and then into the next stitch 2, and then 2 into the next stitch, 1 and 2. So you'll pause the video, work that all the way around, 1 into the next stitch, 1 into the next stitch, 2 into the next stitch. You're going to have 24 stitches in this round. So pause the video and then meet me back once you're ready. So at the end of round 4 we're going to join with a slip stitch into the first stitch. And then we're going to move on to round 5. We're going to chain 1 and then we're going to do 1 stitch into the first 3 stitches. So 1, 2 and 3, and 2 stitches into the next stitch. 1 and 2. So the pattern repeat is 1 into the next 3 stitches. 1, 2 and 3, and 2 stitches into the next stitch. 1 and 2. So pause the video, work your way round. You will have 30 stitches at the end of this round, and then meet me back once you're ready. So at the end of round 5 we're going to join with a slip stitch to our first stitch. And we have completed the base of the can cozy. So at this point your base should be measuring around 2.5 inches. So let me just check, which is about right, 2.5 inches. But if you wanted to adapt the size of this, say for example for a slightly thinner can, then you absolutely can. You could, no pun intended, you could have less rounds or you could add more rounds. It's not going to make a difference to the actual pattern itself once we get doing the sides. So if you need to increase or decrease, you absolutely can do that. So let's move on to the main body setup. So for this we're going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, and then we're going to be working into the posts or around the posts of the stitch. So as we normally work in here at the top of the stitch, we're actually going to be working around the post. So this is the post of the stitch, and that's where we're going to be working around. However, we're going to be working around the back post. So I'll show you how to do this round. So for our first back post double crochet, which is back post single crochet, we're going to be working around this very first stitch. So we're going to take the hook to the back of the work and then bring it forwards and through that stitch, and then work around the post and go from the front to the back. So we now have the post of the stitch just here. We're going to yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook. So this stitch here is our very first stitch, and you can go ahead and place a stitch marker in there if you wish, just to make sure you know where that very first stitch is. So we're going to do this all the way round. So we're going to bring our hook to the back, through to the front, and then through to the back again. We'll get that stitch, yarn over, pull through. You want to make sure that you might need to adjust your stitches here because we don't want these to be too loose, and yarn over, pull through. And then again, from the back to the front, keep your eye on your tension just here. You might just want to pull your stitch down. I don't know if you noticed that then. I'll do it again. So if you go back to the front, you see how this is loose here? I'm just going to pull on my tension, and it's just going to pull that loop in. So it just makes it so that the stitch is less baggy or less loose. And then we're going to go from the front to the back, pull through, and yarn over, pull through. So what this does is it shifts the stitches upwards, which is what we want to do. So again, we're going to go from the back to the front, pull on that tension, and then the front to the back, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through too. So you're going to repeat that all the way round. You're still going to have 30 stitches, or however many you had in your last round if you've adapted. So pause the video, work your way around, and then meet me back once you're ready. So I've just worked my way around. I'm going to remove my stitch marker here, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch to that first stitch. So we're going to continue with the setup now. We're going to chain one, and then we're just going to work one stitch into each stitch all the way around. So super easy round, one double crochet, US single crochet into each stitch all the way around. Go ahead, pause the video, make sure you count your stitches, and then meet me back once you're ready. So I've just worked my way around. I'm going to join with a slip stitch to my very first stitch here. Just remember, when we are working in the round, we have our first stitch, we chained one, which is just here, and then this stitch is our slip stitch. So don't mistake any of these for a stitch. As I say, you can always count backwards to make sure that you are in the right place. But I'm going to join with a slip stitch to that very first stitch. And then we can move on to the main body. So for the main body, I'm going to chain one, again, does not count as a stitch. I'm going to work a double crochet, US single crochet into that very first stitch. Mark that stitch with a stitch marker if you are unsure. And then we're going to chain two. And then we're going to skip 2 stitches. And then we're going to do a pattern repeat. We're going to do a double crochet, US single crochet into that next stitch, chain 2, skip 2, double, US single, chain 2, skip 2, double, chain 2, skip 2. You're going to do that all the way round until you've done your last chain 2 and skip 2, and then you'll meet me back once you're ready. So now that we've worked our way around, I'm going to remove my stitch marker and join with a slip stitch to that first stitch. And now we're going to start the interlocking section of the work. So I'm not going to fasten off this yarn. I'm actually going to lift up a loop and leave that as a working loop. If you want to, you can pop a stitch marker in there. I just tend to leave a long working loop. And it's really important that we keep the main colour towards the front of the work at all times, particularly the working end. So we're going to bring that to the front, and then we're going to find the chain space, which is just after the join. So we have our join just here, and we're going to work into this chain space. So we want to take our contrast colour. I'm going to create a slip knot and insert my hook, and then starting in this chain 2 space after the join, we're going to join with a slip stitch. We're then going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and this counts as a treble crochet, which is a US double crochet. We're then going to work 2 more treble crochets, US doubles, into this same chain 2 space. So it's yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, you'll have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, you'll have 2 loops on the hook, and yarn over, pull through 2. That's 1 and 2. So we have here now a granny cluster. That's what we're going to call it throughout this work. So now we're going to move over onto the next chain 2 space. You notice that I'm laying my tail end down here just to crochet in a little bit as we're working round. And we're going to work 3 treble crochets, which is US double crochets, into this space. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. That's 1, 2, and 3. So we have another granny cluster. We'll move on to the next chain 2 space and do another granny cluster, which is 3 treble crochets, US double crochets into that space. And this is what we're going to do all the way around. So go ahead, pause the video, work your 3 trebles, US double crochets into each chain 2 space, remembering to keep this main colour towards the front. Don't get tangled when you do your last granny cluster, and then meet me back once you're ready. So I've just worked my way around. I'm now going to join with a slip stitch into the top of that beginning chain 3. Just please make sure that you are not leaving this tail end around the back at this point. All of your main colour needs to be towards the front, otherwise you won't be able to pick it up for the next round. So I'm going to join with a slip stitch. And then I'm going to, well, you could leave a stitch marker in here, but I'm going to pull up a loop and leave it dropped towards the back. And then I'm going to insert my hook back into the main colour. Now this stitch here might have slipped a little bit, and that's completely fine. We're just going to pull on the tail end, and that will bring everything back all nice and neatly. So we're going to start by creating a V-stitch here, but this is our beginning V-stitch. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, which counts as a treble, and then chain 1 more, which counts as a chain 1. And then we're going to work a treble crochet, US double crochet into that same space. So we're going to yarn over, go into that space, but we're not going to go all the way to the back. We're going to ignore that round that we just did. So I'm just going to push it backwards for now and then work my treble crochet, which is direct US double. We're then going to do a V-stitch into the next double crochet. So we're going to skip these trebles and find that double crochet from the previous, from 2 rows previous, and work into there. So we're going to do a treble US double into that double crochet, remember ignoring that last round, working in front of it, treble, chain 1 and treble, and that is a V-stitch. So treble, chain 1, treble, which is US double, chain 1, double, that is a V-stitch, and that's what I'll be referring to throughout. So we're going to then find the next stitch and work our V-stitch into there. And we're going to do that all the way round until you meet yourself back at the beginning. So this is what it's looking like. Work until your last double crochet, US single crochet just here, and then I'll show you how to move on to the next round. So I've just worked my way round. I'm going to find the top, the third chain. I'm going to find the third chain in this chain 4 from the beginning of the round. And I'm going to slip stitch into there to join, and then I'm going to pull up a loop, and remember we're going to always drop the main colour to the front of the work. So we're now going to insert our hook into the contrast colour again, and what we're going to do is we're going to line up these V-stitches with the space between the granny clusters. So we have them lined up just here, And what we're going to do is we're going to go straight in to that V-stitch and in between the granny cluster. And we're going to yarn over and pull through. You'll have 2 loops on your hook and yarn over, pull through. So we've just done a double crochet, which is a US single crochet. We're now going to stack another one of those on top of here. So we're going to go into this leg of the stitch just here, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through 2. So we've just created our first treble. That's going to act as a treble crochet. We're going to then do 2 more trebles, US double crochets, into that same space. So we've just connected those 2 layers together. We now find the next V-stitch and the corresponding space between the 2 granny clusters and create another granny cluster just here. So we have 3 trebles, US double crochets in that space, and it's as easy as that. We find the next V-stitch and make sure it's over the space between the granny clusters, and we work 3 treble crochets, US double crochets into there. And that's what you're going to do all the way round. So it's much easier than it looks. You're going to work your way to your last V-stitch and then meet me back once you're ready. So I'm just going to work my last granny cluster into that last V-stitch. And then I'm going to make sure all of my yarn is towards the front and join with a slip stitch into that stacked double crochet, US single crochet in the beginning of the round. And then I can lift up the yarn and keep that to the back. So again, this stitch goes a little bit wild when you're not working with it. So I'm just going to pick up that working loop and pull it back down, and it makes it look much better. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to round 12. I'm going to chain 4 to begin with, 2, 3 and 4. That counts as the treble and a chain 1, and then work a treble crochet into that same space. So I worked underneath the stitch just there because that's what we're going to do around now. Rather than work into the top of a stitch, we're going to work around or into that space between the V stitches. So that's what I've just done there. So in this round we're ignoring the round that we just made, and then we're going to work a V stitch into this space between the 2 V's from 2 rows down. So it's yarn over into the space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2, chain 1, and then work another treble US double crochet into that space, and that creates our lattice look to our work. And then we'll find the next V-stitch and make another V-stitch in that space, and then find the next space between the V-stitches and work another V-stitch in there. And this is what you're going to do all the way round. So go ahead, pause the video, work your way until you have worked your last V-stitch just here, and then meet me back and I'll show you how to finish off this round. So I've now worked my way around, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch into the 3rd chain from that chain 4 from the beginning of the round, and pull up a loop and lay it down to the front. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to repeat rounds 11 and 12, and we're going to do that 5 more times. So just to set you off, I mean, you can rewind the video, but if you remember, we're going to be working into this V-stitch and into the space between the granny clusters. So we'll go into there and work a stacked double crochet, which is a stacked single crochet, and then do 2 more stitches in there to create our granny cluster, and then work that all the way around. So go ahead, pause the video, work your rounds until you reach round 22, and then meet me back once you're ready. Okay, so I've now done my rounds, and I actually did more because I'm going to do one for the tall can. So the details for that will be in the PDF pattern. So let's go ahead and add this top section now. So what we can do is we can insert our hook, or leave your hook inserted into the main colour, and we can actually fasten off the contrast colour now. Let me just go ahead and fasten that off. Okay, and now we're going to move on to this next round. So for the smaller size, this is going to be round 23. So we're going to be working through both thicknesses. We're essentially going to connect them both together as we work round in this round. We're going to double crochet in the space between the two V's, so that's directly below where we've joined just here, and in the center of the 3 trebles here. So I'm going to go into that space, and then I'm going to find the center of those 3 trebles in that granny cluster, which is double crochets in US terms. Then yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull up a loop, like so. Then we're going to find the V stitch, and we're going to work into there and into the space between the 2 granny clusters on the other side. And we're going to work 2 double crochets, US single crochets into there. And this is what we're going to work all the way around. So we're going to go find that space between the 2 V's, and then the center of the granny cluster, the center treble, center stitch, and then go into the V and the space between the granny clusters and work 2 double crochets, US single crochets. And that's what you're going to do all the way round for this round. So you'll finish with your 2 stitches in the V stitch and in the space between the granny stitches. Pause the video, work your way around, and meet me back once you're ready. So once you've worked your way around, you're going to join with a slip stitch to the very first stitch. And then we're ready for round 24, 25 and 26. So for this round, we're going to do a standing double crochet. So we're just going to lift up our loop just slightly and then work straight into that very first stitch with a double crochet, which is a US single crochet. And I will suggest that you pop a stitch marker into there, and we're simply going to work 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each stitch all the way around. So once you've worked your way around, you're going to join with a slip stitch, and then you're going to do exactly the same thing for the next round. So this is round 24, 25 and 26. So go ahead, work both of those rounds, and then meet me back for the final round. So I've now done those 3 rounds. We're now on to the final round. We're going to go ahead and chain 2. This counts as a slip stitch and a chain 1. And we're going to do the same thing all the way around. So we'll find that next stitch and work a slip stitch and chain 1. Next stitch, slip stitch, and chain 1, and slip stitch, chain 1, and we're going to work this all the way round, and this is what creates a beautiful braided look right on the top, just to finish it off nicely. So you'll work that all the way around, do your slip stitch, chain 1 in the last stitch, and then meet me back and I'll show you how to finish off. So I've now worked my way around. I've just done my last chain 1. I'm going to go ahead and fasten off and pull out my hook, and I'm going to take my darning needle, thread that up, and I'm going to find that very first chain. So I'm going to go through the chain and pull through. Don't want it too tight. And then we're going to go back through that very last stitch through the center of the stitch and then pull, and then that creates a stitch just there. So we're going to go ahead and then fasten off. So I'm just going to secure this here. And then you can sew in this tail end. So I always use the rule of 3. So you're going to go one way, back the other, trying to catch different fibres. And then back the other way. And then all you have to do is snip off your very tail end, and then it's ready for the can. So there we have the can cozy pattern. I really hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. If you do give this a go, then make sure that you tag me on social media, because I absolutely love to see what you get up to. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to keep up to date with all of my latest videos. Don't forget to click the bell button as well, and then you'll be notified of the new ones. And if you love this pattern and are looking for something similar, then you might enjoy this video right here.